how to distinguish good ideas from bad, especially in the startup context. I interact with hundreds of founders every month. I've spent about, I don't know, close to 2 years now mentoring, advising, doing office hours with hundreds and probably close to 1,000 founders by now at On Deck, and through my Twitter, through all kinds of founder groups and networks and programs. So I have a fair sense of the patterns that I see around great ideas, and then the ones that are not that great, or the ones that would not make it would not make my selection criteria as a startup idea. And the what I want to share today is the three core pillars that I use in evaluating if the idea is great or not. And of course, there's always anomalies and exceptions. So I'm gonna leave this, with the do your own research kind of disclaimer. But this is sort of my reflection of the three pillars that I think a great idea should possess. And early stage, especially in the early days of a startup, so much about it is about the founder. So a great founder with a bad idea will still win, in my view, because he'll figure it out, or he or she will figure it out along the way and pivot as needed. So ultimately, it's the founders, that matter. But with that said, here's the three core pillars. One, is this idea, is the founder working on this idea? Is this idea being built to solve the founder's need and itch or desire or whatever? And that's very important, because if you're building something where you're not the main user, or you don't have first person experience of that problem, it's very, very, very hard to make it succeed, because you just will look for 1,000 decisions you'll need to through the product life cycle, through the should I use this, should I use that use cases, should I pick this, should I pick that, and you'll always be forever doing customer discovery because you lack that first person empathy. So for example, in my case, if I build something in the immigrant space, guys, I've been an immigrant in the US for the last 12 years. Or if I build something in no-code space, if I build something in the community space, I have unbelievable empathy and first-person experience because I live those lives. And so anybody, who pitches me these ideas, I instantly connect with them because I have a lot of experience in that domain, and I know the pain points and the choke points. And so I think the first thing I usually ask, or first thing I usually check for, is the founder, does the founder have this level of deep insight? And it's very important. So when you build when you have a problem that you're solving, and you know a lot about that problem, and it's so easy for you to see the lay of the land and see the blind corners and all the things that come with exploring a new territory. So number one is, are you solving this for yourself and someone like you, or someone very, very close to you, and you have that level of deep insight and first-hand experience. Second is around habits. Do you know, is the idea built on the foundations of pre-existing habits? Now, this is something that I only learned through the hard way. I used to just get excited about ideas, from the look and sound of it, of them, and instead, and I would get into this fantasy world. I'm like, wow, this is, so cool. I wish this existed, etc. But then I would forget the psychological motivations of users and people. It's way important and way more eternal than a fancy toy that comes into the scene. So fads come and go, toys come and go, a lot of the B2C products come and go, but habits are forever, right? And so human behavior is forever. For example, people will always want to save money. People will always want to make more money, grow the pie. People will always want, especially let's say young people, would always want a way to find attractive mates. There's some of these things are so eternal. So you have to make sure that whatever idea that you're building is banking on, is built on the foundation of some kind of pre-existing habits. That's something that I think a lot of smart founders make mistake with, because they get the idea and then they're too excited about it. They don't check for pre-existing habits. What happens is then your idea has to really convince a lot of people to change their habits, and that's so hard. And it's not that easy. Spotify is successful because people always listen to music, and so on and so forth. And anytime you want to change their behavior, it takes a Herculean effort. take Clubhouse for example. They're trying to change the behavior of like they were trying to invent a new category called social audio, and they wanted to like make a lot of people get in a room and like talk it out and just have like these thoughtful or fun, entertaining conversations virtually and audio wise. And it was such a huge hassle. Even now, I think it's a hassle to get people to repeatedly do this over and over again because again at the peak of the pandemic we all did this for maybe 2 or 3 months, but now our habits return to pre-pandemic habits, and it's so hard to mold and change our habits as people to go back into audio rooms and do these things. So again, you'll struggle a lot if you don't have don't have a foundation of pre-existing habits. And the third and the final one is, can you build it? Can you take it to market yourself? Like, can you be resourceful? Can you just de-risk the assumption/validation part? Now, this is where a lot of people also get stuck because they think, oh, I'm going to spend 4 months, 6 months, or 10 months on this, and like they want to polish it, add more features, make it more and more comprehensive, and it goes from being a leaflet to a textbook, and a thick textbook, and you're like, I don't want a thesis. Like, if you have a great idea, it should be like, it should feel like a meme. It should resonate instantly, like with no commentary necessary. To build that dummy MVP version, like the basic V1, and then put it in front of like 8, 5, 6, 4 users, see what they think. And I think that's a great sign of validation. That's a great sign of demand, right? Like what people really think when they see it, when they play with it, when they use it, as opposed to when you're pitching it or when you're talking about it, when you're like describing the 800-word pitch. So that's another key there, is to make sure you have something tangible that they can play with and give you feedback on and iterate from there. Because if you don't have that, and it has to be real, it can be a pretty mock-up, it can be a pretty slide deck. It has to be a real tangible thing. So use no-code. Use no-code tools if you're not a developer. If you're a developer, build a V1, like a shitty version of this, something that you could show to 4 people, get feedback, and iterate from there. So that's a sign of, if I see a founder or a team that's delaying going to market because of XYZ reasons, and if this goes on and on and on, and it just that's not what Paul Graham would call a relentlessly resourceful founder. And that's what you want. You want someone who is inevitable, who is this DNA to run through the walls and make things happen and go to market. So these 3 things are my 3 pillars that I would use to evaluate. And again, there could be more. Different people have different views, and I'm curious, what do you think? What are some ways you would evaluate a new startup idea? Thank you for listening. Bye bye.